Hello friend, this is Ryan Hicks of TalkToProfit.com, and today I want to talk to you about a question somebody had about a video I made. The video was titled, "Stop Being Conformed to This World by the News and Accept My Challenge." And the challenge was a 30-day challenge to stop watching the news, reading the news, listening to the news, talking about the news. Just cut it out of your life completely, for 30 days at least. At least try that out and see what happens. And so this viewer wanted to know, what proof is there that watching negative news was harmful to our success? And this is a great question, because sometimes people, they know something inherently to be true, but it also goes against their cultural traditions, the beliefs of men that they hold to, so they are afraid to challenge it. Now, this one is a very simple one. There's a whole field of psychology called positive psychology, and they have dealt with in numerous ways the way negative news and negativity in general hinders someone from the best life they could possibly have. And I will put some links in the description so you can read some articles that talk about how the news and the fear it strikes up in people, the negativity, the actually creating biases for negativity. It is very, very, very harmful to your life. Now, as I mentioned in that video, there are people who watch the news, they read the news, they babble about the news, who become very successful. But those are people who do it in spite of the negative news, not because of it. Unless there's somebody who owns a news channel or something and is making profit from that evil they're putting out into the world. They just do it in spite of it, not because of it. And, as I mentioned in that video as well, those people would be even greater successes than they have been by just brute force if they cut the negativity out of their lives, if they cut the news out of their lives, if they started doing things in a more positive and godly manner. Their lives would be even better and even more successful, sometimes 100-fold more successful. But you as an individual can't look to one person who happens to be rich as if that's the only level of success, because what about if they're overweight? I've known people who are rich, monetarily speaking, and they're fat, they're sick all the time, they're absolutely nasty. Their lives are miserable, but by brute force they got to a place to where they made a lot of money, and now their lives are miserable every single day. Not because of the money, but because they're miserable people. Whether they had a lot of money or didn't have a lot of money, they're going to be that way. But if they cast off all that negativity, the drama of the world, the negativity the news babbles out to you each and every day, and just focused on things that were lovely and good report, their lives would be so different. And they wouldn't have just the monetary success they have now. That would be multiplied a tremendous amount as well, but they'd have the health, they'd have the happiness, they'd have the righteousness, they'd have the peace, they'd have the joy that comes from being a person who's led by the Spirit, being a person who is following the good things of God, who isn't thinking the evil thoughts of the world, who isn't listening and trafficking in the negativity of the news of the day. So for this viewer and other viewers who may be thinking the same thing, I give the same challenge to you that I gave in that video. Why not just try this? You're not going to die. You're not going to lose everything. You're not going to become completely ignorant or whatever you think's going to happen by not watching the news. Just give this an actual try. The reason I say try, because try normally is a way people use to get around doing something. I mean, okay, you don't know right now at this point whether this is a good idea or not for you. But something in you says this isn't a bad idea. It might actually help a little bit. Then try this for 1 month. Stop watching the news. Stop reading it. Stop listening to it. Stop talking about it. If somebody brings up some news at work, redirect the conversation or leave the conversation completely. And if your coworkers or people you're talking with, friends and family, whatever, are relatable enough people that you can talk to them, just say, I'm going on a news fast for this month. I don't want to talk about the news or listen to the news or hear about the news. They may mock you a little bit for it, playfully. Most people aren't going to care. And if you can't talk to them in that forthright of a manner, just leave the conversation then. and stop putting yourself in those situations where you're going to have to listen to somebody babbling about the news. Stop calling that friend that always has the latest news, drama, and gossip. And do this for a month. Just completely cut the news media out of your life. And this includes social media where people are babbling about the news of the day. You might have to cut that out if you keep going and there's people just babbling about the news of the day. And watch what happens in your life. Now, be sure, don't replace the news media with something else negative. Maybe, well, I'm not watching news, so you go watch a bunch of awful worldly television programs and movies and stuff like that, because then you're just reinforcing it. All those things work together, and they work against you. So replace it with something good. If you normally spend an hour a day watching the news and reading the news, what can you invest that hour on now? What about reading some good edifying books that edify you and teach you and build you up? I have written a number of books that would be a great blessing for you. You could read them. You have the scripture, you can read that. Maybe you can watch videos. You can watch my videos. They're free. Just watch them. You can use your time for that and edify yourself that way. There are billions of videos online. Watch some of those. If they're good and edifying material, watch them. There are other things you can do to implement in your life that will make your life better, and it doesn't take a whole lot of work. Sometimes that could be something that people are a little afraid of. Well, I'm going to have to put in a lot more work. Maybe they feel like they're already working a lot, and it's going to be just even more work. This isn't more work. You're cutting out something that's wasting your time. You're freeing up an extra hour. Maybe you could use that hour, or maybe even more than that. Some people maybe 2 or 3 hours a day. They may not realize how much time they've been wasting talking about the news at work, reading the news at work. You should be working. Reading the news at home, talking about the news at home, talk about the news in public, watching the news at home, maybe even watching the news at work. But they don't even realize how much time they've been spending on these things. And it's been hindering their lives. So maybe it's an hour, maybe it's 2 hours, maybe it's 3 hours a day you've been wasting on that. If you put that 1 or 2 or 3 hours into something valuable, maybe you want to write a book. Well, that 1 hour or 2 hour, 3 hours a day or even more would be a great start toward writing a book. If you invested an hour a day at least in writing, over the course of a year, you would have written probably at least 1 book, maybe 2, maybe 3 even, depending on how long you wrote. Think of how much more valuable and useful you'll become to the world when you're doing things like writing a book, or you're taking more courses so you can improve yourself. Maybe you're taking a language lesson and learning a new language. Maybe you're learning to play a musical instrument. But you're doing something with that time that's actually valuable and adds value to the world. You now have a better skill. You now have some improvement in yourself that makes you a better person toward others, which makes the world a better place. There's so many more things you could be doing with your life that would benefit you and benefit others with that time you've been spending completely wasting on the news. My friend, I encourage you in this. Give this a try. Give this an honest try. And watch what happens. You won't want to go back. I know there may be the worldly calling to go back to it, but you'll know better now. Now you'll have your own proof. Because it doesn't matter if there's 1,000 studies talking about the positive psychology and how things work and how it's good to be positive, because you could still dismiss that. But when you've tried it in your actual life and you've seen the results it gets, you've seen that you're more productive, you've seen that you're happier, you've seen that things are working out better in your life, you can't argue against that. And that's the proof you need, because that is the real world tangible proof that you now know works in your life, and it'll work in the lives of others. So my friend, take up this challenge today. Give up the news completely for a month and watch what happens. And hopefully you'll be wise enough to continue this from now on, after that month. And you'll watch as your life gets better and better and better each and every day. I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.